been quite a week for me traveling in Nicaragua virtually since I left this pulpit last Sunday. It's cold here. I met a lot of interesting people this week and was a part of some fabulous experiences, but I must tell you that while I was in Nicaragua, I met Jesus, and he's gay, and only about 4'10". And in Nicaragua, they pronounce it Jesus. Jesus was one of our translators who traveled with our team, and I'm happy to say is one of our newest web-based church members now, along with another of our translators. It's Jarius from the Bible, but we pronounced it Jairo down there. Hola, mi amigos, el próximo año es verdad. In Nicaragua, churches basically come in two flavors, either very Catholic or very Pentecostal evangelical. Jesus and Iros are both pleased to find out that there is a church where gay people are welcomed and where you can believe in the moral teachings of Jesus without all of the guilt and fear of hell and manipulation of a lust for heaven. What amazed me the most was when Aros and I became good friends and were talking, and he's translated for me in years past, but we're just driving down the road and he asked me, have you ever read Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States? Now, Aros had learned to speak English from a friend of his who had lived in New York that he would hang out with at the park at night. And I have taken Spanish in college twice and still just struggle. But he learned English conversationally hanging out at the park and read not only Howard Zinn, but he read John Perkins' Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And that just spiraled into conversations about international economics, the World Bank, the history of Nicaragua and the United States, and the use of the military and economic oppression, and I couldn't believe my ears. And our conversations grew to include some of the other translators and some of our Rainbow Network doctors, all of whom had a much deeper awareness of their own history and the ways in which Nicaragua has been little more than an enslaved agricultural plantation for American interest for the better part of 2 centuries. They were not, however, either angry or vengeful. To them, this is just what happened. And they knew that we were there trying to help, trying to do good things. I'm also factual about it. I don't go to Nicaragua out of a sense of guilt that North Americans are rich and we've been horrible to them. And we have been horrible to them. We have invaded and occupied 4 times in the last century. But I try to be factual about it. I happen to have been born on the power side of the North America versus Central America competition. I'm not going down there to try to do penance or even try to level the playing field. It's too late for that. I am trying to practice compassion and to be reasonable in light of our history and their need. It's not a matter of guilt or fear or obligation. It's a matter of honesty. It's a matter of coming to terms with the reality of how we got where we are now. Similarly, though I have personally invested relatively little time in the genealogy of my own family's history, I am aware, because I went to the plantation as a little boy, I'm aware that my patriarchal family operated a large slave plantation in southern Kentucky for 4 generations. Their wealth was invested in land and in the evil practice of slavery, or as Stephen Colbert calls it, our unpaid African internship program. And even though my family was locked into agricultural poverty for another 3 or 4 generations after the Civil War, we were destined to emerge as a clan of white people born in North America. Again, it's foolish to feel either advantaged or guilt based on gender, race, nationality, or any other condition of birth, but it is a fact that the greatest indicator of economic success in the world is to be born white, male, and North American. That is still just true. Those are the facts. Now, there are people who are kind of sick in the head who celebrate that fact, and they are now the ones feeling tremendous fear as they realize that within the next decade, the white descendants of European settlers will be in the minority in this country, and they're going to lose a lot of that power and prestige. But some of us acknowledge these facts and choose to work to change the world to make it more fair and more just. Reciting our history helps us to understand who we are. Our scripture text this morning is very familiar to you if you've ever been close enough to a Jewish family to be around for Passover, in which the reciting of their history is a formal part of their annual rituals. In the late Bronze Era, as the cultures of ancient Syria and Assyria were in collapse, nomadic Semitic tribes, before there really was a Jewish religion, settled close enough to Egypt that when Egypt began to rise as a power, they just brought in all of the nomadic peoples around them and made them construction workers. There, we are told by the biblical accounts in Deuteronomy, is where they found Yahweh. And these slaves became the people of Yahweh who would eventually inherit Palestine. They inherited Palestine kind of the way we inherited North America. That is, you go there and you kill the people that are there and you take over. Every spring when Jews celebrate Passover, their central holiday, they begin by defining themselves by reciting their history. In Jewish homes the world over, just a few weeks from now, the youngest person present will ask the formulaic question, what do all of these rituals mean? Why is this night special? And the head of the household will answer, a wandering Aramaean was my father, and recites this passage that Reverend Mel just read for us. I could say an immigrant Brit who became a slave-owning farmer was my father. And most of you who woke up this morning as citizens of the United States could say something similar, whether you're of Latino or black background or white background. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, we came here on different kinds of ships, but we're all in the same boat now. Though many of us have had to face ridiculous and unjust discrimination and have been challenged with barriers to education, health care, or employment in our lifetimes, still we must acknowledge that we live in a nation envied by our southern neighbors for both our national wealth and the opportunities afforded to us by that national wealth. And I've commented on this recently, but as we consider who we are and how we got here, we really have to acknowledge that we are the inheritors of national wealth that came to us. It did come to us by hard work. It's not like they just got off the boat and found Bank of America waiting for them. The wealth of this nation was built by hard work, sacrifice, courage, ingenuity. We have invented more stuff and done more to develop than any other nation in the history of the world. But it is also true that our wealth comes in large part by the fact that we were willing to kill off more than 90 million North American Indians and take their land, their gold, their silver, their resources, and through the forced labor of both African slaves and children who worked in the textile industry for 70 or 80 years, and by exploiting women and illegal aliens all through the 20th century. All this stuff, all this hand-wringing about illegal aliens is just nonsense. We could have built a fence anytime we actually wanted to do it. Our economy depends on illegal immigrants that are not paid and not given benefits and not given access to resources, who pay into our Social Security system, who pay into our Medicare system, and cannot withdraw from it. So we have been tremendously economically advantaged by the people that we hold our noses and claim to be angry at. So when we are willing to deal with reality rather than our political myths, when we know the facts, then we have the opportunity to help create a more just, sane, and frankly, a more spiritually honest world. The Canadian musician Bruce Cockburn was inspired by the theology of one of my Harvard professors, one of my favorite people in the whole world, Dr. Harvey Cox. He's been a huge inspiration to me. In search of a more engaged spirituality after reading Cox's work, Cockburn traveled in Guatemala during the time of the disappeared and in Nicaragua during the Contra War. His anger at the injustices he witnessed then and his determination to see the world changed became the poetry of his Stealing Fire CD, which I love the music, but even if you don't love the music, there are literature classes here in town that just use the lyrics in poetry classes. It is among the best poems written in the 20th century. The CD is now almost 30 years old. I still listen to it all the time. It's very powerful in our lives. And it inspired a lot of the work of U2 and some other bands, Bare Naked Ladies, and some others, but a very influential set of music. We asked David, and thank you, David, for being here. We may need to lower the lights and some of you guys go stand outside and smoke to make you feel more at home here from the venues where musicians usually get to play, but we're grateful that you got up on a Sunday morning to be with us. We asked David here to sing one of the songs from Cockburn's CD, Lovers in a Dangerous Time, that contains one of the lines that I have so often used to define our ministry, asserting that the reason we are here is to keep kicking at the darkness until it bleeds daylight. We do not deny our cultural and our religious history that has many dark chapters to it. We will not hide behind religious mumbo-jumbo about life after death or anything else, because genuine spirituality is in need of the whole truth. But we are not destined to repeat our past, and we do not have to be tied to the role of being the abusers that our ancestors were. We have chosen to do a new thing, a good thing, a loving and compassionate thing. We have chosen to keep kicking at the darkness of slavery and third world exploitation, oppression of the poor and abuse, until it bleeds the light of liberation and justice and mercy and freedom. We are, as the Nicaraguan hero Augusto Sandino, who fought against the U.S. occupation of Nicaragua in the 1930s, said, "Yo viven en la lucha por la paz." We live in the struggle for peace. And you must forgive me, friends, if I declare confidently that this time we're winning.
You've been watching a progressive Christian video from the Community Christian Church of Springfield, Missouri. We encourage our viewers to donate to our efforts in feeding the homeless and hungry of our community. Write to us at reverenddray@aol.com for more information.